Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later Trilogy replacement is perfect after $77 million horror hit. Danny Boyle's long-awaited 28 Years Later trilogy seemed like a sure thing. With Cillian Murphy returning and Alex Garland writing again, the stars had aligned for the third installment of a landmark horror series. But now, with the massive success of a recent $77 million horror hit, a surprising new direction may be even better than the original plan, and perhaps exactly what modern horror needs. Horror evolves, and so must 28 Years Later. While the 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later films reinvented zombie storytelling with kinetic camera work and a bleak post-apocalyptic vision, horror as a genre has evolved significantly since the early 2000s. Audiences now crave subtext-rich narratives, elevated dread, and complex moral ambiguity, something this recent box office breakout delivered in spades. The $77 million surprise in question is Late Night with the Devil, a found-footage-inspired horror film that mixes psychological tension, social commentary, and retro aesthetics into a terrifyingly effective experience. Its runaway success proves that horror fans are ready for stories that play with format and challenge expectations. If 28 Years Later leans into this trend, shedding some of its past formulas, the result could be a trilogy that's not just satisfying, but revolutionary. A new vision for a familiar world. Boyle is no stranger to experimentation. He directed Trainspotting, Sunshine, and Slumdog Millionaire, all visually daring projects that pushed cinematic boundaries. With 28 Years Later, he has the rare opportunity to both revisit a beloved universe and reinvent it for a new generation. The unexpected success of Late Night with the Devil might just be the creative jolt he needs. Rather than crafting a straightforward continuation of military camps, infected hordes, and collapsing civilization, Boyle can explore the long-term psychological and societal aftermath. Imagine a world decades after the outbreak, not just surviving, but mutating. How have cultures adapted? What rituals or religions have formed around the infection? What happens when second-generation survivors begin questioning the truths their parents told them? This is the kind of rich thematic material that horror fans are craving, and it's exactly the kind of subversion that made the original 28 Days Later such a landmark film. From infection to ideology. In a post-Last of Us world, audiences are comfortable with morally grey characters and slow-burn storytelling. The real terror isn't always the monsters, it's the choices humans make when their systems collapse. The horror that resonates now is less about blood and more about belief. The $77 million success of Late Night with the Devil proves this. That film's horror comes as much from media manipulation and cultural hysteria as from supernatural forces. Boyle's trilogy could take this cue and explore how propaganda, isolationism, or even cultism emerge in the infected world. Perhaps survivors worship the infected as divine punishment. Maybe entire cities live under bizarre new laws designed to prevent emotional connections, the very thing that led Jim to risk everything in 28 Days Later. This shift in perspective would elevate the trilogy from a mere horror franchise to a cultural commentary. It would feel like a natural evolution of the story rather than a nostalgia cash grab. The practical advantage of change. There's also a practical reason a new direction could work better. A traditional sequel trilogy comes with high stakes, big budgets, and expectations for spectacle. But the success of more intimate horror films like Late Night with the Devil, Talk to Me, or Hereditary shows that horror thrives when it's stripped down. These films pull in major profits on relatively small budgets, allowing for greater creative freedom. If Boyle and Garland pivot toward a slower, more psychological approach, perhaps in the vein of found footage, or with limited locations, they not only align with current remain,